Is the funeral over? Hurry back home. Today is Eliza's birthday party, so get ready. My beloved daughter Shelley had passed away only at the age of 5. This was said to me by my mother-in-law Lori on the day of my final farewell to Shelley. She didn't attend her own granddaughter's funeral, and instead asked me to come back for her sister-in-law Eliza's birthday party. I wondered if she had lost her mind. Anger overcame my grief, and I made a phone call to someone. My name is Rella, a 33-year-old housewife. I have a 5-year-old daughter. My husband Milo, 2 years my senior, and I met through a friend's introduction. We married 6 years ago and were blessed with a child soon after, our daughter Shelley. She is just 5 years old now, at her cutest age. It's so cute, yet her fate was cruelly harsh. Shelley was frail. 2 years ago, when she was 3, she began to have fevers and cold downs repeatedly. She also had swelling in her neck. Thinking it might be months, we went to the hospital, where we were told, "You need to get tested at a larger hospital immediately." That's what the doctor told me. After various tests at the general hospital and waiting anxiously, the diagnosis was finally revealed: malignant lymphoma, a form of childhood cancer. My world went dark as I pleaded, "This must be a mistake, right, doctor? Tell me it's not true." Despite the presence of the doctor and nurses, I broke down in tears. Immediate hospitalization was necessary, and although we went home to gather essentials, I couldn't stop crying. My husband Milo, while shedding tears himself, strongly encouraged me. "We need to stay strong. It's going to be okay. Shelley will get better." Yes, he said it forcefully and encouraged me. We were briefed about the illness and treatment, and I had to sign consent forms for blood transfusion and surgery. The tough treatments continued: IV trips, blood draws, blood transfusions, chemotherapy. I quit my part-time job to be with Shelley at the hospital all the time. Milo occasionally took time off work to visit and would say, "Take a break sometimes, otherwise you'll collapse too." When he took over the visits, I would take care of things at home or get some sleep to maintain my strength. For the first few days in the hospital, Shelley cried a lot. Gradually, as she got used to the hospital routine, she cried less. Nurses would praise her. Shelley didn't cry at all today during her injection. I was praised. Despite hair loss and a weakened condition due to the side effects of chemotherapy, she never complained and always smiled. She was happy to see us. She loved drawing. "Dad, Mom, look." On a day we both visited, Shelley showed us a drawing of Milo and me in her sketchbook. "Shelley, it's really good," I said. Shelley, always talkative, would chat away in her hospital bed, giving us more strength. Instead, when her white blood cell count was low, she had to stay inside a clean room. But after about a month, as her blood count improved, she was allowed to go home for a few days. Shelley said, "I want to go to preschool," so we visited for the first time in a while. Seeing Shelley playing happily with her friends filled us with joy. When we got home, my mom came to visit. "Shelley, you're doing so well," she said. Seeing Shelley being pampered and playful in Mom's arms, it seemed unbelievable that she was ill. "Mom, it smells like home," Shelley said, smelling the scent of a towel blanket that had been drying at home for a few days. She was energetic, but then she said, "Mom, my head hurts." Shelley looked vacant and complained. "Let me see. Oh, you have a bit of a fever. Wait here, I'll make some soup." I put Shelley to bed and hurriedly finished the housework, then started making soup. At that moment, the doorbell rang. When I checked the monitor, it was Lori. I regretted not ignoring it. "Lori, what brings you here?" I asked. "Do I need a reason to visit my son's house?" she replied. I wanted to say, "Yes, you do," but I kept silent. Normally, I would have gladly welcomed a kind mother-in-law, but unfortunately, Milo's mom, Lori, was the last person I wanted to see. "What are your hobbies?" harassing my daughter-in-law. I suppose that would probably be her reply. Since the beginning of our marriage, I have been continuously harassed by Lori, insulted for not having a higher education, for being tall and not cute enough. I was amazed at her ability to come up with such hurtful words, but when my father-in-law was alive, he played the role of a stopper, scolding her, which made things a bit bearable. After he passed away from illness in our second year of marriage, the harassment intensified. With no one to watch her, she would order steak for me at meals or suddenly turn off the hot water while I was showering, just petty things like that. Milo has an older sister, Eliza, a successful career woman. Her husband, my brother-in-law, is a prosecutor, and Lori is proud of Eliza. She always compares me to Eliza, making snide remarks. Eliza has a son, Jace, in 2nd grade. When we visited for Christmas, the difference in how Lori treated Jace and Shelley was blatant. Even though Shelley is her granddaughter, does she not find her adorable just because she dislikes her daughter-in-law? As I was busy making soup, Lori butted in from next door. Yes, Shelley has a fever, I thought. If you don't have any business here, just leave. But then again, really, such a frail child. I wonder who she takes after, certainly not our family. Your dad had cancer, right? Right, Lori. I've told you many times this illness is not hereditary. Indeed, my dad passed away from cancer when I was in high school. However, malignant lymphoma is not hereditary, except for certain virus-related cases. How many times do I have to explain the same thing? Is she senile? In the end, Lori just glanced at Shelley, spewed her venom, and left. I wondered if it was dementia. In the end, I took a look at Shelley's face, said a few sarcastic comments, and left. What was her purpose? Just bored? Shelley spent a year alternating between living inside the clean room and having a few days at home. As her blood count improved, after about a year and a half in the hospital, she completed the planned treatment and we were able to bring her home. She could go back to preschool, and we even went on a family outing to the aquarium. She was walking energetically. I never doubted that Shelley would recover, but a year after her discharge, when she turned 5, my worst fears came true: a relapse. The painful treatments continued: spinal injections, radiation therapy, bouts of pneumonia, and high fevers. I massaged her swollen face and legs. I even underwent a bone marrow transplant for her, believing it would be enough. Sadly, my white blood cells didn't engraft, and her condition worsened. Then came the doctor's cruel words: "There's nothing more we can do." It meant more treatment would only burden Shelley's body. It was a prognosis of limited time. We decided to bring Shelley home and spend our last days happily together. We did everything Shelley wanted. She participated in the preschool sports day, and her bright smile made her friends laugh too. Mom visited many times. I had resolved never to cry in front of Shelley, but sometimes tears would escape. During such moments, "Mom, what's wrong? Do you have a headache?" Despite her own pain, Shelley was such a caring child, worrying about me. I prayed for this happy time to last forever, for a miracle to happen, but my prayers were not answered. Though she looked healthy, I had to admit that her blood test results were definitely getting worse. Her condition was steadily progressing, and she could no longer walk. But we believed her 6th birthday was just around the corner. We were certain she would make it to that day. However, Shelley's condition rapidly deteriorated. She began to have difficulty breathing. "Please be prepared," the doctor said. I had decided not to cry, but I couldn't help it. In my dazed state of mind, I told Shelley, "I love you," and Shelley replied, "I love you too." Despite the difficulty in speaking, she mustered her strength to say her last words as she became critical around 4 a.m. at dawn. Desperate resuscitation efforts were made by the doctor. Shelley and we kept calling out as we had requested. Milo and I took turns holding her in our arms, wanting her to fall asleep there for the last time. Shelley fought hard, but she passed away. "Shelley, respond. Open your eyes." The warmth of her hand I was holding quickly turned cold. I had no time to grieve as I was immediately caught up in funeral arrangements and preparations. It felt like I would lose my mind if I didn't keep busy. Arriving at the funeral home, "You're not coming to my words?" she replied. "The living are more important than the dead. Eliza is coming back from abroad. It's her birthday today. You need to pick up the cake." I felt dizzy enough with your nonsense. I struggled to contain my anger. "At least bring a present later. You better come, or I won't forgive you." As if you're the one to forgive. I blocked Lori's number and reached out to someone. Many people attended the funeral, coming to say their final goodbyes. Doctors from the hospital, preschool friends, my friends, everyone cried for Shelley, which was heartwarming. We filled her coffin with her favorite sunflowers, and her friends placed letters inside. Milo did an admirable job as a representative of the bereaved family. Hours later, Milo and I stood in front of his parents' house. "Milo, Rella, help!" Lori pleaded as we entered. We ignored her and went into the living room. Eliza's family and a few relatives had gathered, and they were all glaring at Lori. Eliza was the first to speak to us. "I'm so sorry, Relly. We had no idea today was Shelley's funeral." After blocking Lori's call, I had phoned sister-in-law Eliza. Though harassed by Lori and often compared to Eliza, I had a great relationship with Eliza, like real sisters. Being an only child, I cherished Eliza as a sister, and her son Jace often played with Shelley. Even after Shelley fell ill, Eliza frequently visited us, showing her concern. This year, Eliza had to travel abroad for work, and her return, coinciding with her birthday, overlapped with Shelley's funeral. We were busy and had previously asked Lori to communicate with her side of the family, but foolishly, Lori had told the relatives about a birthday party for Eliza's return, not about Shelley's funeral. Eliza, whom I had informed, was shocked that Lori hadn't attended the funeral. Upon returning home, when Eliza contacted me again, the burial was already over, but they were waiting for our return. Shelley, Eliza, among others, was mourning Shelley amidst everyone's cold stares. Lori said, "You can always have another child," the worst possible words to say. Then, with a devilish glare, Eliza threw the cake prepared for her at Lori's face. "Wash off that twisted personality of yours." She dragged Lori to the shower room and doused her clothes and all. During this, when asked why Lori had called, Lori was nagging me to hurry back for Eliza's birthday party preparations. I said weakly. The relatives were shocked and disgusted. Returning from the shower room, Lori, completely drenched, was despised by everyone. "No, but it's Eliza's birthday party. She's returning after so long. Shelley was sick anyway, not expected to live long. Eliza's birthday is more important, right?" Lori's excuse was met with anger. "My birthday party? What nonsense. Calling Rellies for that? If Shelley was so important, how could you not understand Milo's grief over losing her? Why didn't you attend your granddaughter Shelley's funeral?" Eliza furiously confronted her. "No, but..." Lori, unable to think of an excuse, grew quieter. That's when Jace spoke up softly. "Grandma, you don't really love your grandchildren, do you?" "That's not true. I love you, Jace. You're healthy and Eliza's child." "What's that supposed to mean? So, Shelley, my child, wasn't loved because she was ill and your daughter-in-law's daughter?" The anger that had been shaking Milo finally erupted. "No, but Shelley was Michelle's child, so I kept my distance. She was always sick and in bed, not fun at all. So, Jace, Eliza's healthy child, is loved, but my daughter Shelley is not because she was frail. You're insane for prioritizing Shell's birthday over attending her funeral. Have you lost your mind?" These words came from Lori's brother, my uncle-in-law. His wife, my aunt-in-law, added, "She's always been crazy. She harassed us when we got married, even tore my daughter's dress for her piano recital." No one at the scene stood by Lori, who had become utterly diminished. "We're leaving Milo, Michelle. Let's talk again some other time." We exchanged deep hugs with my uncle and aunt-in-law. "We'll be going too. Needless to say, Mom, we're cutting ties with you." "Wait, Milo, I always got yelled at by you, who favored the successful. Is that why you didn't care for Shelley, my child?" "It's not like that, Milo. You know, you didn't study properly like Eliza, didn't listen." "So you only care about those who do as you want, huh?" said Milo sadly. As I handed Lori something beside him, it was a drawing of Lori made by Shelley. In the picture, Lori was smiling. "This, even though you didn't dote on Shelley, she admired you. I hated you, and never saw a smile from you. But maybe Shelley saw you smiling like this." Shelley was a pure and kind child. Even during her treatment, she was more concerned about me. Perhaps in her eyes, she saw a kind Lori. "Shelley," Lori cried for the first time, clutching the drawing. But now it was too late. We're also leaving. I won't ever see Mom again, said Eliza. Wait, don't leave too. Ignoring Lori's words, we all left the in-laws' house. Later, my uncle-in-law's family visited us. They first apologized for Lori's behavior. After praying over Shelley's photo, they lightly spoke of Lori. She seemed remorseful, holding Shelley's drawing, but the things she said and did couldn't be undone. As my aunt-in-law said, Lori had always been troublesome. It's unlikely she'll change now. Following this incident, other relatives also decided to cut ties with Lori. Despite her being so disliked, there was no room for sympathy. Her bizarre behavior over the years made it natural for everyone to distance themselves. She might end up alone, dying in loneliness, but she should live with her regrets. After the funeral, as the busy days passed and the procedures concluded, the loss of Shelley finally hit me. Temporarily blinded, I worried Milo greatly, and my mother had to stay with us for a while. I felt like losing my sanity. I wanted to be with Shelley, overwhelmed by despair. Could I have saved her if I'd taken her to the hospital sooner, been more attentive to her health, but I couldn't take my own life. Shelley fought till the end, breathing in and out. In her dazed consciousness, she tried so hard to live. Gradually, I started to look forward. I joined a group for parents who lost children to the same illness, finding solace in talking and crying together. Communicating with Eliza and meeting her also became a relief. Milo and I adopted a puppy. The friendly puppy greets everyone on walks, wagging its tail. It feels like a reincarnation of our bright child, Shelley. Are you drawing in heaven, talking a lot, smiling? Someday I'll join you there. We'll meet again, so wait for me. But if a miracle happens, I want to see your smiling face once more. As Shelley's mother, I vow to live a life I won't be ashamed of.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.